An old adage, attributed to thinkers from Bismarck to Confucius, states, "A wise man learns from the mistakes of others, a fool from his own." When a moving system hits a barrier, it either absorbs the impact and alters its trajectory, or rigidly slams into the obstacle until it fractures. Learning from failure is a complex psychological construction. It requires an active negotiation between memory, ego, empathy, and an individual's perception of truth. By mapping the healthy flowchart of wisdom and contrasting it with the pathological narcissistic loop, we can see why some minds grow while others remain trapped in the same failures. This structural difference reveals whether a mind is built to navigate reality or built to construct a prison to keep it out. Consider a driver who believes they are careful, but one morning they carelessly back their car into a neighbor's mailbox. This event triggers cognitive dissonance, the uncomfortable friction between a person's self-perception and the reality of the crushed metal. In a healthy system, the mind moves toward reflection. The error creates a friction point demanding analysis. The mind handles this friction operating on a stabilizing truth. I did a foolish thing, but I am not a foolish person. It separates behavior from identity. This psychological safety allows metacognition, the ability to think about their own thinking, to objectively analyze the accident's variables. This is ego accommodation, changing internal ideas to fit external reality. By embracing uncomfortable data, the healthy mind updates its internal model and ensures the same collision doesn't happen twice. Personal failure is an effective teacher, but it is expensive. It costs time, energy, and sometimes reputation. To learn from the disaster of another human being requires a higher psychological capacity. Aristotle called this phronesis, or practical wisdom. The first prerequisite for this wisdom is theory of mind, the cognitive recognition that other people have internal mental states structured exactly like our own. This works in tandem with empathy, the emotional capacity to feel the actual weight of someone else's consequence. Expanding our flowchart, we can see how the healthy mind runs a high-fidelity internal simulation of an observed event. Instead of assuming immunity, the wise person assumes, if I replicate their variables, I will replicate their results. This allows the mind to internalize structural lessons and change behavior before a crisis occurs, reaping the benefits of experience without paying the price. The narcissistic mind operates on an inverted blueprint designed solely to protect a fragile core self. In this architecture, an error is an existential threat. It is not processed for growth, but as a direct assault on a grandiose self-image. Admitting a flaw invites a narcissistic injury, the devastating collapse of self-esteem that occurs when reality proves the individual is not perfect. In the narcissistic flowchart, a mistake triggers catastrophic alarms. To block reflection, the mind utilizes splitting, preventing the ego from ever acknowledging the error. Instead, projection shifts blame onto incompetent partners, rigged markets, or the universe. If projection fails, the mind employs revisionist history. It mechanically rewrites memory, framing the narcissist as a victim or hero. Because the error isn't claimed, no data is absorbed. They remain trapped in behavioral loops, blaming imaginary arsonists. To maintain an illusion of absolute perfection, the narcissistic mind deliberately blinds itself to the laws of cause and effect. If this architecture cannot learn from its own mistakes, it's unequipped to learn from others. Driven by a constant need for dominance, they lack the shared humanity required for external learning. They view another person's failure strictly through a hierarchical filter, seeing it as undeniable evidence of that person's inherent weakness or stupidity. This creates a fatal internal logic. They failed because they are weak. I am brilliant, therefore I can execute the exact same reckless behavior and I will succeed. Believing their identity exempts them from physics and consequence, they ignore the warnings and walk directly into the fire. The narcissistic mind transforms the valuable warnings left by others into stepping stools for its own hubris, disregarding the universal laws of cause and effect. This comparison reveals a hard truth about our capacity for human growth. To be the wise person who learns from the world requires a position of courageous vulnerability. You must acknowledge your own limitations and admit that you are made of the same vulnerable clay as the person who just stumbled. This architecture turns the entire world into a living textbook, where every human interaction offers a free lesson. The narcissistic architecture refuses this lesson. By rejecting the data of failure, it builds a beautiful, static cage. The messy, beautiful process of human growth is traded for a frozen illusion of perfection. Processing failure is ultimately an act of humility. The wise man reaps the harvest of lessons paid for by generations of human trial and error, while the narcissist remains blind to the cliff until they are already falling.